Welcome. I want to say welcome on this wonderful day in March as we have our wonderful cafe, Movement Cafe. This is the third year of doing our movement cafes, which I sort of in January we realized that wow, we're moving into our third year and you never know how something's going to go, and these conversations have gone so well. And just the information shared, the people who share, and today we've got a great cafe too. We've got some wonderful presenters with us from Kentucky, Illinois, North Carolina, and beyond, and all of you from all the places you are. I'm in Southern Oregon, so all the way to the bottom of this state. And it's beautiful here. We're in the mountains a bit, so we get a bit of the New England weather for those on the West Coast, the East Coast who know what New England can look like. I'm an earth keeper and I'm part of the greater Northwest area. And I want to encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat. Where are you from? What's your conference? You'll find people from all over here. If you're an earth keeper, shout out to that. If you are here for the first time, if you've got a garden, I bet it's gardens that brought you here. Either your hope of them or your hands are in the dirt, or maybe it's not quite warm enough to plant yet. Noah had shared that with us when we first joined together before the cafe. It's not quite time, not quite yet in Kentucky where he is, and he's looking forward to that. Um, and so, yeah, so introduce yourself. The Movement Cafe is once a month on the third Wednesday of the month at the time that you are right now. So you might be afternoon, you might be evening, you might be morning, regardless of where you are. Morning for me, we want to welcome you. So welcome to the Movement Cafe. I want to turn it over to Kathy Velasquez Eberhardt, and she's going to share a little bit about what is this wonderful thing called the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement. Go ahead, Kathy.
Welcome. So good to see so many people, both those who I've seen many times before and those who are new in this movement. It's a joy to have this opportunity to gather every month. I'm a layperson, a United Methodist layperson, and a commissioned Global Ministries Earth Keeper, and one of many who've helped bring the creation justice movement into being over the last six years. I'm also in Minnesota, where we are still kind of digging out from a blizzard, so I am especially eager to dream about gardens and all green things, as I know that's coming our way soon as well. The movement has emerged as United Methodists have really been thinking seriously about how we can do more, how our call to become in just relationship with God's good creation can be lived out through our churches, through our conferences, through our lives. And so we've imagined a variety of things that include work teams that include around advocacy, around solar, around organizing our annual conferences, through communication, which is one of the ways that this cafe emerges. And we have a new team that we're launching with this cafe around land stewardship and gardening. And we're particularly excited to be able to have a space for folks to connect around that. I did want to just say that gardening and land stewardship that we'll be talking about is a dual purpose. I've been reading this lovely book for Lent called Making Hope, and they talk about the author writes about how these kinds of practices are both good in and of themselves and as kind of metaphors, as parables, as ways of being in the world, that they remind us that another way is possible. They help us imagine what the world could look like, how it could be otherwise. And so as we have this conversation today, I leave you with this question from this author, and I'll put the book in the chat because I do recommend it. He says, how might these activities help us cultivate new life ways for the sake of a hope-filled world? And how might they reshape our perceptions of the good, holy, and sacred on this planet? So I look forward to this conversation and look forward to getting to know you all. I'll turn it back to you, Rishinda.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So yes, there's like this gardening touches everything about our sacred life, about our created life, about our material life. There's nothing separate about human beings from the creation, the cosmos that God created. There's nothing separate. Our microbes, we're more microbes than we are human. We have so many microbes. That's just everything else because we're so interconnected. And the garden is like a way that's just lived out in, I think, just a really beautiful way. And certainly when we look at the big picture of what should a disciple do, what should a disciple be, what behaviors, what practices, what heart. The till and keep the garden is one of the very first things, if not the first thing, that God requests that Adam and Eve do, that the humans do. Hey, you humans, go till and keep the earth. And the amount of good that we can do in that space is becomes extremely evident, especially when lined up against where there is harm, where there's ecological destruction, where there's loss of things like topsoil, where we accidentally do things like make lawns that kill everything, that kill the biodiversity. We don't often enter into those things with an understanding that that's what that lawn is going to do. We see it as beautiful, right? So being caretakers and being keepers just pops us into that next piece as disciples to say, have we really thought about that? Is that really what's happening there in the soil when you put in a lawn? What feeds us? What feeds our souls and our bodies and our minds? And so that's my 2 seconds of being a preacher this morning. So I will now pass it on. So who we really want to hear from is our wonderful speakers today. And I'm going to first introduce Noah Curtis. Let me get to my screen here for introducing. So I'm going to introduce to you Noah Curtis. He's a young entrepreneur with a love of community and gardening. He grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and is a graduate of Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky. He started his business at age 24, offering professional support to gardeners in his local area. And since then, his business, Pineal Gardens, has expanded into neighborhood farm stations in 15 states, building community to share produce, address food waste, and reduce hunger. His passion is building sustainable gardens and nurturing the soil, a gift he also lends to his local United Methodist Church. And so with that, Noah, I will turn it over to you.
Glad to be here, guys. Thank you for having me. I guess kind of go on what she just talked about, kind of introduce myself, kind of my upbringing, and that bring me to the church. So I was always around gardening as a kid. My dad always had a garden, so I was always kind of in nature, in growing something. Went off to college and didn't have that garden, and that's kind of when I really started appreciating that you can just grow. The food that you grow, it tastes better. Just being around the garden, it just, I think, so good for your mental health, like the mental health, the physical health. I just kind of started kind of putting two and two together, and so my love for gardening kind of grew in college. And then when I came back, like she said, I started a company, and initially it was just like garden consultation. So we would go out, help people kind of start a veggie garden or a flower garden, but really kind of with the purpose of using that garden for something, whether it's herbs or a flower garden that looks awesome, but kind of teaching people that you can actually, cut flowers and have these for vases and teas and all the awesome things that, gardening does. But that kind of soon turned into more of a mission, as I started with these little pioneer trade stations, is what we call them. And they're kind of like little free libraries, if you know what those are, except for they are for plants, seeds, house plants, even like fresh sourdough, like starters and things like that. And so I put the first one out at one of our clients' houses in Louisville. People started using them, and it just kind of, it was really awesome to see just a community coming together, and it kind of just another reason that I think the gardens are so important, not just for the beauty and the garden, but also it's just such a community, like it connects community so well. Such an icebreaker to talk to your neighbors, or to talk to people about, what you're growing. It's just so easy to get a conversation going in the garden. And so now it's been 3 years since we've done that. We've grown into 15 states. Anybody can become a host, just like the little free libraries. And then we have a little map on our website kind of showing all the locations so you can get to the locations and all that things. And that's what brought me to my church. The pastor here, I actually live in Louisville, Kentucky, but right down the road is Mount Washington. And that's where the pastor wanted me to come talk about what I was doing with these, with the mission side of the company. And so I went, saw what they were doing with their garden. They have 8 acres, and his idea was to eventually have it open to everybody in the community. They were going to plant fruit trees and have a community garden section. They were going to have a flower garden section. There's a prayer garden that you can walk through, and there's like benches and like nativity scenes and just different cool things, all biblical plants in that garden as well. And it was really cool just to see what they were doing, what he was doing, and how the church was just using some of that land, and they wanted to use that land, just be better stewards of it, I think. We have that land, and so we might as well use it. So that's how I kind of got involved in the church. And like I said, it was just an amazing thing to see people that weren't just talking about it, but that were actually doing it. Me and my girlfriend had gone to a couple of different churches in Louisville. One of them was like a big mega church, which not hating at all with that church, a great church, but it was just a little bit bigger than, it was really hard to kind of find community and to kind of talk to people. There's probably 10,000 people that come to a Sunday service. So it's a huge church. And then going to this one, it was just an amazing vibe and just an amazing community. So we started going there. And then I just got more involved in the garden. And so this year is going to be the biggest. We've kind of built a community of people that, want to do it. And we kind of had the fundamental stuff going. So again, like I said, we have a lot of land. We're fortunate that we have a lot of land. There's 8 acres behind the church. And so some of the things that we're doing, like I kind of briefly talked about, but we have the community garden, which people can get a plot at, and they don't have to be part of our church. They can be whatever throughout the community. They can go to another church. They can not go to church at all. But it's just kind of to bring people and build the community. So they can rent a plot. I think it's $5 to get a whole plot for the whole year. And it's a pretty big plot. Most people grow like veggies there. And we're expanding that this year as well, because we've seen such a great, just like people wanting to do it. So we have that part. We also have the prayer garden, like I talked about, and it's like this winding path. Then you kind of walk throughout it. You see different biblical plants. We have a children's garden, which we're trying to set up. I'm not as involved in that because there's the daycare, or the children's ministry, I guess is what you call it. They're kind of working to get things that can just kind of teach kids, so they can just like some hands-on activities. Maybe they can kind of play in the dirt or plant stuff, maybe like a mud kitchen or something like that. We also have already a like native garden, but we are also now, and actually we're going to do it this week, building a big wildflower garden. So they said I could do whatever I wanted to. So hopefully they don't regret them saying that. But it's going to be a big garden with the purpose of just letting people come and walk through it, have benches that they can kind of like, sit down, pray at, or just be with nature is really the idea. But also making it usable, teaching people like, hey, you can cut these for vases, zinnias, you can use all these plants to make yourself just better, healthier. And so that's really a fun one. We also have a guy in the church that does, he's a veteran and he has a veterans ministry. So he's starting a sensory garden, which is going to be really awesome. It's going to have tons of plants that, just different smells, textures, things like that. And his big goal is to help people that have like PTSD, and just been veterans and just need to kind of connect to nature and find and figure out all the healing powers of plants, and just being, connected to God's gift.
Sorry, as I'm muted. So yes, so one of the things I really love to hear about while you were talking about your what you are sort of bringing in, what the community is bringing, how everyone comes sort of in support of each other in the construction of, you have 8 acres, so you can do all these different things on that same plot. And it included a veterans ministry garden, like you were mentioning. And I'm mindful too that you have agreed to step forward and become the new lead for a new working team for the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement. And it's so we have working teams, and basically it doesn't mean you have to, like, go off to work or anything, but it's a place to come for support, conversation, share resources, and just make plans, right? One of the things we noticed in the movement is that there's a tremendous interest in gardens. And so Noah, can I ask you maybe to your thoughts a little bit on bringing a group together, and what inspired you to say, hey, let's do that, and what might you hope to see come from that?
I guess that inspiration really comes from, I just really believe that it can help a lot of people. I think the gardens and just nature in general can really help a lot of people, especially in like today's age of just, I'm 28, so I'm not super young, but I'm younger, I guess. But just my generation and the generation below me, you just see, we kind of grew up with phones and social media and all this stuff. So just being on it all the time, I think has kind of been bad for the mental health. So just seeing how people can kind of disconnect from that, get in the garden, it was a big, huge inspiration for me. Just how I think it can help people. So, being a part of this and trying to do it across America in the Methodist churches, I think is an awesome opportunity, and I think it's just a fun way to connect with people and help a lot of people.
One last thing, because full disclosure, I've had a chance to talk to Noah a few times, even though I'm in Oregon and he's in Kentucky, through the magic of Zoom. And one of the things that I just loved in our conversation is when we get nerdy. And Noah can be surprisingly nerdy with soil. And I don't know, anybody surprises me with nerdiness with soil, but I also share this nerdiness with soil. I think nobody is as weird as me, but actually, there's a lot of people out there who are. So, Noah, can you share? You're a soil first guy, and can you share why soil is important and why starting from the ground up, which is often where all our ministries start, from the ground up, with the soil, is important?
Yeah, and so that's actually kind of something I forgot to mention as well. We have a big compost pile now at the church, because we go through a bunch of food and banana peels and coffee grounds and all the things that can go in a compost. So we actually started that to help reduce waste. But yeah, I mean, everything is kind of the soil. If you don't have good soil, you're not going to have good plants. It's going to be way harder to keep the plants alive. They're going to get more diseases, more pests. I mean, the soil is kind of like the body. If you have a healthy body, have less chances of getting all those things that you don't really want. Same with gardening and plants. If you have healthy soil, everything becomes easier. And so, that's a big focus for us is, just adding compost, organic material to the soil, to kind of bring back soil health, because when you spray different things, pesticides or synthetic fertilizers, when you over till the garden, it can start ripping the ecosystem apart. So for us, we really want to just build the ecosystem in the soil. One, it's so good for just numerous things, but it also just makes us not have to do as much work, because you have all these like millions and billions of little workers in the soil that can feed your plants for you. So if the ecosystem is good, it just makes our job less easier as well. Which there's enough things to do in gardening that we don't want to make our job any harder.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's wonderful. I'm there with you with the beautiful soils, and we had there's a lot of resources out there too to help build soil, and Noah can help with navigating you through that process as well as you build your garden, as you build your dream garden and dream about that garden and all the good food that's going to come from it. So I want to, in just a minute, I'm going to turn to Kim, but one thing I noted earlier is that there's quite a few earth keepers here in our group, and I had said feel free to share if you're an earth keeper in the chat earlier, so that's always just a good fun thing. And there is another earth keeper training coming, so before we turn to our next speaker, I do want to pop over to Kathy and have her talk a little bit about the coming earth keeper training.
Yeah, thanks, Rashinda. We just learned that their application deadline for the next Earth Keepers class has been extended to April 1st. And so they are still looking for folks to join that online virtual training. So far there's been a pattern where some of the trainings are fully virtual and others are in person. So if you would find that to be particularly useful for your context, that could be the moment to get in and do this training before April 1st. It's been such an important way that many of us have found each other and developed this movement. And all of you who are Earth Keepers, I know, value the way that it helps you promote, grow in what you're hoping to do in your context. So I'll put that in the chat, but do either sign up for that yourself or share it with people in your networks that could be interested. It's such a great opportunity. And send it back to you, Rashinda.
Awesome. Yeah. It's I think it's a good program, and I love that it connects you with your leadership and lets them know, hey, I care about this work. And so that's always really good too. So I want to introduce Kim Richmond, as she is a commissioned Global Ministries Earthkeeper and the currently chairperson for the Western North Carolina Conference's Creation Care Ministry team. She's also a climate reality leader and self-professed bird nerd who is active in her local Abaddon's chapter's advocacy efforts. In 2016, Kim wrote legislation passed by the General Conference for the United Methodist Church for good stewardship of church lands and contributed to other legislation that prioritized creation care across the United Methodist denomination. Boy, things got changed at the last General Conference for the better, and we are still reaping the good fruit from that effort. I want to go ahead and, there's an upcoming organizing through her conference for a Bishop's Climate Summit. And Kim, I don't know if you want to drop information for that, but that's in April. So that's been pretty marvelous. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim as she's going to be our next voice in what all this is about and how to bring it to fruition.
Great. Thank you, Rashinda. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to be here today or for watching the recording when you have the time later on. I'm really pleased to be able to be here and share with you. And I'm going to start with a little bit of backstory, as Noah did. Mine's a little different from his. But in 2017 was really when I became it was a pivotal year for me moving into creation care ministry. What happened is I became aware of the actual immediacy and urgency of climate change. And through that, I began reading and researching and trying to learn as much as I could. And that led me to, this seems to be a promotion for Earth Keepers. That led me to Earth Keepers training. In August of 2017, that was actually the second class ever of Earth Keepers. And when I finished the Earth Keepers, became a commissioned Earth Keeper, took what I'd learned back to my church and to the community, but continued to try to learn more and more and more about creation care because I had a lot. I had a lot that I was curious about, I guess is what I want to say. So as I did that, the books that I read really suggested that to increase your connection with the earth, that you begin getting your hands in the earth, which of course you can do through growing your own food. Well, I'd never had my own vegetable garden. I'd never really grown anything very much, but I thought, hey, I'm going to try this. So on my back patio, I decided to start small. And you can see I had some containers that I would grow a few vegetables and a few things in. And it was successful. And it was enjoyable and did increase my connection to God and to his creation. And I appreciated that greatly. But at the same time, here's that bird nerd again. That is the logo on my new t-shirt that my sister got me for Christmas. And I love it because I am a bird nerd and life is good when I'm birding. And so birding has, for quite a few years, has been my real connection with God's creation. It is my happy place. It is my place where I can go to when I'm not feeling that great, and I can turn and I can look out and I can connect with the birds. And so, as you can see here, I also became aware of maybe the importance of plants and native plants, especially for birds, for other wildlife. And so I got more into gardening in the native plants arena. And the bottom picture on the right-hand side is the native plants garden that we put in our front yard of our home. And the one above it is one that we just finished at our church. Well, we didn't finish it. We got it in and got it started, and it is going to continue to be a work in progress. And we just love it. So native plants, we have a few vegetables in the native plants garden, and we provide them to our food pantry. And so we do that. But that is kind of where my focus and where my passion has lain, as has been in the native plants arena. So I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm doing in the gardening, and we hit 2023. And at that time, the movement, United Methodist Creation Justice Movement, I'm on the annual conference working group. They decided that they wanted to draft legislation that would be really model resolutions that anyone who's working at the annual conference level throughout the nation could be able to look at and might want to offer at their annual conferences related to creation, care, and justice. And they asked if someone would write a resolution on church land use. So I'd never done anything in the resolution area before. I was fairly new to all of this at the conference level, but I raised my hand. And because I was passionate about the native plants and about getting my hands back in the dirt, and thankfully had great support from Chris Zinkowitz, who's a marvelous editor, and from others on that annual conference working group who made suggestions, and we wrote a model resolution that was just called church land use. And it was actually used by and adopted by a few different annual conferences, which was great. Well, then we move into 2024. And as was mentioned before, we had General Conference. And many of these model resolutions, as well as other resolutions that other people, even outside of the United Methodist Creation Justice Movement, offered, passed. It was a great year, a great conference, General Conference for creation, care, and justice legislation. The resolutions that were passed and the changes, additions to the Book of Discipline, it was wonderful. And so I've listed just a few that were passed here, but also the church land use resolution that we'd written for the use by annual conferences was also passed at the General Conference level. And it became Resolution 1214. You can find it in the Book of Resolutions. And what that is the first part of it is really talking about the science and the theology and really the harm that humans have done to God's creation, to the ecosystems, to the gifts that he has given us. And then we moved into actually what we were asking the church to do and some examples. Well, I'm talking to you about this because if you are interested in starting a church level land stewardship ministry or a gardening ministry or a conference level, which I think we're going to have some of my co-presenters will be talking about, in addition to Noah talking about those, this might be something that you could use that would be beneficial for you. So you can read it. It's basically talking about promoting and sustaining life, calling local churches and other holders of church lands to do things that bring their land back in harmony with God's intentions and systems. And the part about the promote and sustain life is just so important because, as Rashinda said, we don't set out with all of our lawns to create the dead zones that we've since learned that they really are, as far as wildlife and insect life and even plant life, but that's how it's turned out. And so if you go kind of more than the eye can see and look to what it's really doing in our church lands, this is what we want to aim for, making them more life promoting and sustaining. So we suggested some actions, and I just pulled out a few that would relate to gardens. And they are not all inclusive. They're not, this isn't the be all end all. You can come up with other things. We were just trying to give ideas. One of the first one, get rid of about 50% of your lawn with native plants over time. And as was mentioned earlier, stop using the synthetics or pesticides, biocides to promote soil health. Soil health is so important. We were looking to restore the harm that we'd done, to restore the ecosystems that we needed to restore. Include some edible native species. You can have some fruit trees. You can have some like blueberry shrubs and bushes that you want to do just as part of the landscaping, if you like. But also, and here's what I think is an important one from my experience, is this is free. Also, I'll mention that right up front. Work with an ag extension agency in your area. They have expertise in gardening that you can pull from. And as I said, they're free. They'll come out, they'll walk your property, help you get started, and you can create a teaching garden or farm. Well, it doesn't even, every time I step into the garden, even though I'm supposedly the one sponsoring it, I learn something. It is, everybody learns in the garden, I think. And so you can get them to help you get started on that. And really, like I said, there are a number of other actions that you can do to make your church lands life promoting and life sustaining. That's the important part. So, if you're thinking of starting some type of garden ministry, I just really wanted to make you aware that the denomination has already said creation care and justice efforts, practices are important. And so you can feel comfortable going to your church or to your conference and saying, this is what I want to do. You can use Resolution 1214 specifically to show some of the things. And, I think feeding ministries, if you're using a vegetable garden, for example, is going to be even more familiar to the people, the church people you're talking to, than a feeding ministry for the ecosystem. But that's still important. You've got to feed your ecosystem. You have to feed the pollinators, the insects, but you can do both. And I think Noah mentioned that they are doing that. Good heavens, he has a number of different types of gardens. You can integrate both vegetables and native plants like flowers and shrubs and trees because they support each other. You have to have native plants to attract native insects, and native insects are your pollinators for your vegetables. And so you can do that. Additionally, native plants will attract the beneficial insects that will eat and make pesticides unnecessary. They will eat the harmful insects. And they also contribute to soil health, which makes more nutritious veggies. So, they can be integrated together. And I hope that is at least somewhat helpful in giving you some resources that you can use if you want to do this in your conference or in your church. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, so that those permission giving structures in our denomination can be really important. So Noah shared how enthusiastic his pastor is and was around that space, that 8 acres, and really wanting to see it grow. And not everybody has a pastor like that. And no, not everybody is a pastor like that, where they feel like, I don't know how to do this. Like, how am I going to ask my bishop for funds for making a garden when, this isn't really on my bishop's radar? And so these permission giving structures are built into the church discipline and resolutions and actions of the church. When you do charge conference, another new thing from the general conference is there's a little line there that says "and green church ministry." So it's three little words or two little words, I forget what they are, but basically it says that that the green team of the church, or the green concerned member of the church, can bring forward at charge conference these kinds of conversations, and you're supposed to. It's not, you're just supposed to do it. And so you don't have to feel like, "Ooh, should I do it? Can I do it? Will it work?" Try to be joyful. Sometimes by the time we get a voice, we're so pent up. And this is me. I'm talking about me, pointing right at myself. I'm so pent up that I come out more with judgment. Like, how will you never listen to doing this stuff? That's not as helpful. And I remind myself later, Rashana, why did you do that? That was super not helpful. Congratulations on that. But to find the joy of it, that invite people into the vision of it. Can you imagine pawpaw trees as far as the eye can see? Wow. And the birds that come with those, and the joy that comes with those, and pictures of the kids running around them. What is more amazing than that? And that is God's world right there. So those are the kinds of things we can bring to our conferences. Speaking of conferences, we have with us Emily Bryant, and the Kentucky Conference has not just blessed gardens, but encouraged that the conference itself has created a ministry around gardens. And let me introduce Emily, and she's going to be sharing with us next. So Emily Bryant is a strategic communicator, currently serving in the Central Appalachian Missionary Conference. Hailing from London, Kentucky, she is a 2025 graduate of the University of Missouri's School of Journalism. At the Central Appalachian Missionary Conference, Emily works to assist in the development of conference relations and communications, often planning and sharing content that revolves around the CAMC's central missions of disaster relief, rural hunger relief, and community engagement. So go ahead, Emily.
Hello. Thank you guys for including me today. Just kind of introduce myself to you guys. I'm going to be presenting a slideshow as I go through, so I guess I'll just introduce myself here. So I'm Emily from the Central Appalachian Missionary Conference. So we're kind of concurrent with the Kentucky Conference. We share a bishop with Kentucky and Tennessee, Western Kentucky. So we are kind of the Appalachian bridge, sort of for that rural area, so that we can kind of really reach those communities that are maybe kind of overlooked when it comes to a more general look at that area. And so today I'm going to be talking about Hope Harvest, which is it's kind of our food insecurity, which we don't really like to say food insecurity at CAMC. We just say, immediate hunger needs, because it's an urgent need. And so that's sort of what Hope Harvest is for, is addressing the urgent needs in the rural communities in southeastern Kentucky, where CAMC is located. So kind of a little about why I love gardening. So recently at CAMC, I've kind of expanded on, an existing love of gardening, an existing appreciation for it, but I never really got to participate in it myself. In the past, I was always kind of very busy, and I went to college, and so I was never really in a setting where I could garden. And so here I have some, photos of me doing mission work in Atlanta, getting to work at a community garden. But that's me in Atlanta, and we were working at a community garden down there and getting to work with some other teams that were there at the same time. And so that was really, really a lot of fun. And since graduating college and since starting at CAMC, I've got to work more directly with people that way and get to witness that collaboration and witness how not only is it addressing a need, it's a community tool. It's a fellowship tool. It's a way for people to spend time together and work toward a goal that everybody can be proud of. And so, regionally, it's important to my family heritage. It's important part of my faith journey. It's important part of me as a member of the community. So what is CAMC? We are a missionary conference of the UMC. We're in southeastern Kentucky, some of the most remote parts of southeastern Kentucky. It's very mountainous there. There's not a lot of grocery stores. It's what you would call a food desert. Even though you have so much land and mountainous areas, there's not a lot of ownership of land. There's not a lot of you know drive for the people who provide resources to provide the community with those resources. And so it's kind of a need for the community to work together, if that makes sense. And so we have really, made sure to prioritize that with our disaster relief, our connection to UMCOR, more intimate mission-driven conference structure where we are addressing these needs directly. We have about 22 churches, I think, in our service area. So that is, and you can see on the map there, that encompasses a few different counties there, a handful of counties. And so really it's a situational, proximity-based, I would say, system of resourcing the community through CAMC and through our counties. So why land stewardship is important to us on that conference level, because it is different than being on a church level or a state level, or a national level. On a conference level, we can see, we have a slightly bigger picture than if it would just be one church, but we're able to look at that greater need as a whole. And so we see that food insecurity need and how it is manifesting throughout our service area. And we see that, that food desert status, how people aren't able to get access to their own land to grow their own produce sometimes. And then, we have here, our churches as our hubs, are places that we're able to say, what are the needs in your community specifically? How does it relate to the needs of our whole community? And what can we do to address that? And so, with that coming all into play, the land stewardship element becomes very important because we're giving people a space to come together and have ownership of something that everybody's going to benefit from. So Hope Harvest, it is a conference-wide initiative where we're kind of directly addressing these needs in a way. We've got the garden outside, the greenhouse, which has been, facilitated through mission work, partnership. We've got the orientation towards our churches, our pastors, helping us find these needs, helping us locate families who might need assistance or might need these food boxes that we're able to put together with our produce. And so it's a really, it's a system of collaboration and community. And so the way that we've kind of got the garden set up, when we do have it set up in the summer, is we've got the section where it's just for general use. And then we do have plots where people are able to kind of put their own crops down if they need that place. And I think that's a really important part too, because they're not just, showing up and, saying, what do you guys have going on? They're able to take ownership of, their own piece of the garden and able to work on their own piece, but also help with each other and get that conversation going. So what we do, we have, like I said, the greenhouse builds. That's been coming along really nicely in the last, I would say since last summer. We've had a lot of help with the greenhouse. Greenhouse is getting, I think we're trying to get a second one going right now. So we've had help putting that together, and that's going to help extend, year round, collaboration and assistance. And so then we've got the community garden as well, like I said. And then through that, we're able to do the church partnership and, work with our pastors and do that food distribution. And kind of to give you a picture of how that works, I would say when we meet with our pastors, which we try to do pretty regularly, even though it's a conference, we try to meet directly with our pastors on at least a monthly basis. And so that way we're able to talk to each of our pastors about, the needs in their community, what they're doing with their land, what they could benefit from, what we could help them with, and it's a real two-way relationship. So with our greenhouse projects, you can see here, a work team that came to help us put one of the greenhouses together. It's both, sometimes we get outside groups, sometimes we get internal groups, a few leaders, some young people. You never know who wants to, come help and work for a day or two. And with these greenhouses, it's, we're already seeing, how it's going to really help this year-round, system of being able to maintain these relationships with the people that we're able to serve. So collaborating at the conference level, it's the part that makes it really a conference specific mission, I would say, is that we're organizing these teams on a more conference level, communicating with other conferences, seeing what other missions we can partner with, what connectional ministries we can partner with. We are able to coordinate resources on a little more of a general level, while also understanding those more intimate, lower level, immediate needs and things that need to be worked on and addressed. And so I think that's a real, not a disadvantage of being on a conference level, but a real advantage of being able to do that. And so, like I said, we're able to see this immediate impact. We're able to give people ownership of their own, their crops, their own, they'll have fresh produce they can cook with in these places where it's often not accessible. I know near our conference, the closest grocery store, you've got to go down the road to the dollar store if you really want to get produce. And so it's really, helpful to the people in the community to have that resource. And so we are able to see that tangible impact. So how can this be replicated, even not on a conference scale? I would say this level of collaboration, listening to each other, working with your local leaders and your lay leadership, and really just understanding what needs are there to make a direct impact, I think is very applicable to any context like this where you want to establish land stewardship and community gardens. Thank you guys so much. And this is a QR code actually to our homepage, but I think we have a link directly to our Hope Harvest. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Emily. There's also a video. I think if you go to our newsletter from March, you'll find more. But just a quick follow-up, Emily, what is your vision? What are you hoping will happen because of this ministry?
I really, we wrote an article, I think, last fall, and we had said we counted it up, and we think last year we had helped about 15 families total. I think really, especially with the greenhouse, I think we want to be able to, at the very least, double that this year. But I think there's such a possibility to build that out and to be able to measure that in a lot greater way. And I think that's a big goal for us.
Oh, yeah. I love the connection here with food as insecurity. And then the other connections that have floated up, food waste, land stewardship. I mean, it's just, we all often talk about creation care, something that touches everything. And certainly we're creatures here on this earth. And so of course, gardening touches everything about who and what we are and what we need. So thank you so much. Thank you. I want to introduce our fourth speaker, and after that, we're going to have breakout rooms, and you're going to have the opportunity to share conversation with our presenters. I encourage you to stay and enjoy that time. It is very worthy, and folks are usually extremely grateful to have stayed, and they share about how much it meant that they could have that little bit of conversation. So I want to introduce Karen. We had the joy of talking to people who had these different gardens and sort of looking at, can you share? Would you share? Are you interested in sharing? You feel comfortable? Are you in a place where it works? And oh my gosh, it was great to talk to Karen and all the things that she's up to. So Karen Clausing grew up on a farm near Highland, Illinois, in a family of green thumbs. Her love of the land and inspiration from the state organization Faith in Place led her to form a green church team in 2019, break ground on a church garden in 2020, and become a global ministries earthkeeper in 2022. The green team dedicated their garden in 2024 and plan a section specifically for pollinators. Karen is also a member of her local United Methodist Church in Charleston, Illinois. And so glad you're here. And I'm going to turn it over to you. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me today. I am pretty excited by what Kim said, so I have all kinds of thoughts popping around in my head, and I have no idea how that come out. So please feel free to ask me questions along the way too. So I grew up on a farm. I've always had my fingers in the dirt, and I have always felt very connected to our beautiful world. In 2019, well, first of all, I am in East Central Illinois now. I'm about an hour from the Indiana-Illinois border. That is the land of soybean and cornfields. But yet, even though we're growing food so abundantly in my area, about 4 out of 10 families in our area with children are food insecure, which to me is pretty shocking. So in 2019, Cindy Shepard from Faith in Place came to our church and gave us a presentation about forming a green team and some of the things you can do with that. So in that fall, we founded or formed a green team in my church. My church is not a huge mega church with unlimited resources, but we have a group of about 8 people, and it varies a little bit through time, but they're pretty dedicated to the idea of making this a better world and creation justice. So in 2019, in the fall, well, first of all, we did a couple of projects. The first thing we did was handing out cloth shopping bags and a recycling guide for the beginning of the year in January. Then we planned to do an energy survey at the church, which we did and was very helpful to our trustees. And we decided also, with the idea of the food insecurity, that we would start a garden in 2020. And we're blessed to have a pretty large lawn area at our church with a manse and a lawn area next door. We were wanting to reduce the expense of the mowing and the chemicals. We didn't want as many chemicals to be used on our church property. And we like the farm to table concept of growing food locally to avoid the trucking costs and all the fossil fuels associated with that. So we were planning to start in 2020. And of course, we all know that COVID hit then. So it wasn't really an optimal time to start something like this, but we did anyway. So on the top picture there, you can see our humble beginnings. And we had no budget, so we started with the wooden raised bed that our pastor and his family donated to us, and then 2 cloth grow bags that are one of the members of our green team donated. And I would like to say that we were a rousing success that first year, but we really weren't. But it was a good learning experience about cooperation and the need for organization. So, I guess the moral of the story there is don't be afraid to get your feet wet. So that fall, we were very, very fortunate in the bottom picture that there's a scout troop at our church that a young man who was in our church decided for his Eagle Project to expand our garden. We were really very grateful and delighted with his result. He put in a 3 foot wide paver path and waist-high raised beds so that our garden would be handicapped accessible. That was important to us too. He also put in some more wooden raised beds. And so this bottom picture is a picture of planting time in 2021. And he also put down a weed barrier and brick edging around it all. So we were really off to the races now. We had a real garden. So we were very excited about that. Let's see, to give you the flavor of our garden, I want to read you. We have a form that we use to recruit gardeners and volunteers every year. And I want to read just the introduction of that application to give you the flavor of our garden. The garden is a ministry of our green team. We hope that by gardening together, we will grow peace and community, as well as healthy food, herbs, and flowers. Our garden includes an area dedicated to attracting and supporting pollinators. It is a beautiful spot to garden or simply sit a while. Occasionally, frolicking fawns and our nearby university events provide unexpected entertainment. We also hope that spending time in nature will foster a sense of stewardship toward this beautiful world God created. So that's kind of where our thoughts are. Let's see. I don't know if you have the other two pictures I sent. Okay. So as we expanded then, 2022 was a really big year for us. Here at that point, we decided to become much more intentional about our donations of vegetables. There are 3 food pantries in town, a Charleston area one, something called Standing Stone, and then we have a subsidized daycare center in the 2nd floor of the church, and we often will take vegetables up there because I think the employees and the people that use that daycare a lot of times are on pretty tight budgets. So we expanded our garden. We more than doubled it in size to put some rows in our garden. And the rows are completely dedicated to producing food for the food pantries. And every year we learn more as we go. I've always had my fingers in the dirt, but I am more of a landscape, wildflower, put in a patio kind of a person. So I've been learning to really do a good job raising vegetables along with our gardeners. And every year of our garden, we find ways to tweak things a little bit and do a better job next year. I think as a gardener, no matter what kind of gardening you do, you are an optimist because there's always next year to even, do something differently. So here is a picture of our dedication in 2022. We were fortunate that Faith in Place came, TV cameras and reporters and actually dedicated our garden. And we're always really happy to have a lot of people in our garden. I forgot to mention 2022 was when I did my Earthkeeper training. And as part of your Earthkeeper training, you have a project that you work on. And so I chose our beginning little garden that we had. And the timing for that was perfect because it really helped me to understand the things we needed to organize. It talked about actually the planning steps to make the next growing season more productive. And it talked about things that I never even thought about, like networking with local groups in the community. We have a university across the street from our church, and a lot of the students there are there on MAP grants for kids who are the first people in their family. I think they're called MAP grants. For the first people in their family that are able to go to college. So the kids get there, but a lot of times they're not living on much of a budget to even provide the food that they need. So between the university kids and the food insecurity, there's a real need for food in our area that we can grow. And we try to include those people. There's some apartments, student apartments nearby. We try to include and do some outreach to get those folks not only in our gardening or not only using our vegetables, but we would love to have them in our gardening too. Let's see, networking. We want to have an educational component for our gardening. And a real important thing that I hadn't really gotten my head around is the need to measure how much we produce, how many hours we spend there, where our produce goes, and other measurement kinds of things. Okay, I guess that's enough for there. But the earth keeping was really important to help us with that. We went to visit a garden in our area to learn about regenerative gardening. In addition to the education part about actually knowing about, how to stake zucchini plants and how to prune tomato plants, we're starting to learn about the soil health too. And we took a visit to a regenerative garden a couple of years ago and started learning the value of that, where if you do that process, and by that I mean each fall putting down a layer of cardboard and a couple of inches of mushroom compost, which is a fancy way of saying horse manure. Then you build the nutrients in your soil. You don't do tilling, so you don't destroy the soil structure and the microorganisms that are in your soil and will grow networks when they're not disturbed. We learned about cover crops, which we haven't been able to implement yet, but that's something that we would like to start doing too, is putting cover crops on our rows to help improve the organic matter and the nutrient value of our soils. Also, another value of it is that over time, there's less weeding, which is always a good thing in a garden. And so every fall, that's one of our jobs, is we spread manure on our rows and in our raised beds. And my husband always gets a kick out of manure time, because we do a monthly Zoom with my green team. And when we are talking manure, he just thinks that really tickles him. But it's a job we do every year, and it's really not as bad as you would think it would be. So let's see. We do have a composting area in our garden.
I think we have about 1 minute, Karen, if you want to.
I'm almost done. Yeah, that sounds perfect. That we are over the years figuring out how to use. And we also we received a grant for a pollinator garden. So we have added that a couple of years ago. And like everything with gardening, it's always a continuing project. So I guess that's really about all I wanted to tell you about.
Oh, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And yeah, back to that health of the soil and the idea of food justice, where we ourselves eat more healthfully, but also have enough. Noah mentioned in one of our conversations how, like, what do you do with all that extra produce you grow? It just goes in the compost pile. Everybody has too many tomatoes. I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding? I grew like 4 tomatoes. I was so excited about my 4 tomatoes. But it's like that learning process. And then after a while, you really do have so much to share, and that sort of evidence of God's bounty. And so I just love that part of the gardening conversation is, how do we get food to people? How do we make sure, how do we build those sorts of networks where everybody eats, everybody? And so anyway, it is time for our breakout rooms. And the way we do breakout rooms here is you get to choose what room you'd like to go in. And it's an opportunity for you to have to share with one of the presenters sort of ideas or questions or whatever you bring to your heart, with your heart. There's also some wonderful information in the chat. So please go ahead, please, and just join your breakout room and have a wonderful conversation. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. As the breakout rooms close, they will sort of bring everybody back to our main room. It's great to see everyone back, and I hope you had wonderful generative conversations. The conversations in the breakout rooms I've heard are pretty wonderful. And today, even though what we sometimes do is like, what happened in your breakout room? Put that in the chat today, because what I want to do is I want to get our presenters to just really quickly say so let's say, now I know a lot of folks here are experienced with gardens, but what would you say to, Noah and Kim and Karen and Emily, to the person who says, I want to do this. I want to bring a garden to my church yard as this next thing that I feel called to do. What's the first next step? And start with Noah on that one. What's the first next step?
I would say kind of just get into it. I've been really blessed and very, very lucky that people in the church I go to, my church, they just want to do it. So there's really been I have a key to the barn, and they're like, whenever you want to do something, you can, just get after it. So I've been very lucky. So for me, it was literally just going out there and doing it. For most people, I guess you probably have to ask your pastor and get the okays with that. And so if that's the case, I think just making it about community, making it about, how it would benefit the whole church. Because then the people that might not really be into it, I think would be into it. Like if it's like, oh, we can have a potluck with the food that we grow. That sounds cool. Or, hey, this is going to have cut flowers for me. Like that's nice. Just kind of showing people how it's actually going to benefit you as well. I think makes everything a little bit easier. But like I said, I was kind of blessed and very lucky that everybody just likes each other, gets along, and there's been no, butting heads. So for me, it was just kind of digging in and getting going.
Okay, awesome. So I'll send that question to Kim next. What's the next first thing?
Well, for me, we had to get approval from the Board of Trustees to change a plot of ground that was all grass into a native plants garden. And so to do that, we had to show buy-in from the church. And so we started doing outreach and training and asking personally and holding presentations, and came up with a team of 12 people who were interested in saying they would committing to it for a while. So I think, but for us, it was kind of the opposite of Noah's. We really had to show that it was something that the church community wanted to do, and we were able to do that. So it was successful in that way. I'd say find others with the same passion would be a good next step.
That's awesome. Yeah. And Emily, I'm going to throw that same question your way.
Yeah, I would just say don't overthink things. You can be practical and start small. And, by starting small, you're more likely to invite people in and have people be comfortable helping, helping you get that off the ground. And I think that's a really feasible way to, have it be fruitful, but, practical.
Absolutely. And just 1 minute left, really, Karen. Can you chime in with what would you suggest is that first next thing?
Start small, ask your congregation for help. We put out a request for tools, and we have more tools now than we can possibly use. Get buy-in from your congregation. I think that if you have people doing, that's always better than just having one or two people doing. And dive in and get started.
Okay, that's wonderful. And we only have a couple of minutes left. Mel, I see your hand up, so give me 1 second. And we're going to hear from Kathy as well, just on the last minute links and things like that if you have them. If not, that's fine too. And then Pat, Dawn, are you prepared to pray us out as well? Perfect. So go ahead, Mel.
One of the things that I think is so important is that you create your project, create your team in such a way that you have broad buy-in across the spectrum of your church. One of the things that's been very helpful to us is that not only the staff is important, not just the pastor, but the entire staff. But we've also gained a seat on the leadership team of the church. And that way, everything that we do reflects what we're all about.
That's Yes, I mean, and it should reflect it, right? Because this is discipleship and the
Yes.
work of our hearts and the land and each other in community. So, Kathy, it seems you're set. There's already lots of links in the chat. So please remember that Earthkeeper training. Remember that we're going to be putting together this working team. And so we'll probably reach out to you about that to gauge your interest. We end on time around here as best as we can. So go ahead, Dawn, if you will pray us out. And well, actually, first, thank you to all our presenters. Oh my gosh, it's just so all of you doing the work here in the cafe and our presenters who come to share why it matters and how things can go together and share their stories. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Dawn.
No. Yes, I want to echo that. Thank you. The presentations were wonderful and very inspiring. And thank you for everybody for coming and participating in this work. Okay, so let's pray. Loving Creator, we thank you for the wonder of your creation, the gardens, the forests, the oceans, and the soil that feeds us. We confess that we haven't always been good stewards and we've often neglected or exploited your beautiful handiwork. We ask for your guidance that we may have the wisdom to heal what's been broken, to plant with hope, to manage your resources with humility. Teach us to protect the vulnerable, both human and creature, and to nurture our connection to the earth. May our daily actions in our gardens and communities be a true prayer for the flourishing of all life. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. I love that prayer. All right then. It is our time to say goodbye. No hanging out in the parking lot. And we don't have a pineal garden right here to swap food with, but you could get one in your neighborhood and do just that. And happy gardening.